FTX began as a promise wrapped in simplicity, a crypto exchange that would feel professional, liquid, and safer than the rougher corners of the early digital asset world. Sam Bankman-Fried presented himself as an unusually analytical founder, someone who talked less like a hype marketer and more like a numbers-driven builder. That image mattered. In finance, trust is often built through tone. If a leader sounds careful and technical, outsiders may assume the systems behind the scenes are equally careful. As FTX expanded, it became more than an app where people traded tokens. It became a brand that looked mainstream. Sponsorships, partnerships, and a polished public identity helped create the feeling that FTX had crossed the line from startup experiment into institution. At its height, it appeared to sit near the center of the crypto ecosystem, connected to venture investors, market makers, and a global community that wanted crypto to feel legitimate. But every exchange, crypto or traditional, rests on a fragile foundation. Confidence that customer assets are available when customers want them. The moment users wonder whether withdrawals will be honored quickly and fully, confidence can shift into fear. And in markets that run 24/7, fear can become action within minutes. The difference between a stable platform and a crisis is often not a single event, but a sequence. A rumor, a report, an unanswered question, and then a wave of withdrawals. By early November 2022, public reporting began to focus on how closely FTX was linked to Alameda Research, a trading firm associated with Sam Bankman-Fried. A key detail that spread quickly was concern about balance sheet exposure and the role of FTX's own token, FTT, within that ecosystem. An uncomfortable point because a token's market price can move sharply under stress. If an organization's financial strength depends on a token that can be sold off rapidly, the system can be vulnerable to a sudden loss of confidence. Then came the test that every exchange must pass. Can it meet withdrawals at scale? In a short window, requests surged. A wave like that is not just a technical challenge, it is a trust audit performed by millions of users at once. When an exchange cannot satisfy that wave, the market assumes the worst, even before every fact is known. The story of FTX accelerated into a crisis of credibility, not because crypto is inherently unstable, but because any financial platform becomes unstable when confidence collapses faster than clarity arrives. What makes FTX a powerful educational case is that the outward image looked strong at the exact moment the underlying structure could not withstand stress. The documentary lesson is not don't innovate, but don't confuse branding for resilience. In finance, resilience is proven under pressure, and pressure arrived suddenly. The next chapters would show that this was not a simple business failure like an unsuccessful product launch. Instead, it became a story about internal controls, governance, and how customer funds are managed when a platform is both an exchange and part of a wider network of affiliated entities. That combination, exchange plus closely linked trading firm, became one of the central lenses through which investigators and the public tried to understand what went wrong. In the days leading up to the collapse, the relationship between FTX and Alameda Research became the most important question in the room. To most users, an exchange is a neutral venue. Buyers and sellers meet, and the platform simply matches orders. When a major affiliated trading firm exists beside the exchange, observers naturally ask whether the boundaries are firm. Are customer assets segregated? Are conflicts of interest controlled? Are risk limits real, monitored, and enforced? Public attention sharpened after reporting that Alameda held a large position connected to FTT, the exchange's native token. A native token can be presented as a loyalty instrument, a discount mechanism, or a brand extension. But it can also become a pressure point because its value depends heavily on market confidence and liquidity. If the token is widely held but thinly traded, a major sale can push its price down quickly. That matters because a falling token price can trigger collateral concerns, margin pressures, and panic narratives, especially if people believe the token is supporting other parts of the ecosystem. As these concerns circulated, users began withdrawing funds at scale. Reports described extraordinary withdrawal volumes within a tight time frame. The mechanics of a run are simple. Individuals act in self-protection. Even if a user is not sure the rumors are accurate, they may withdraw just in case. When many users do that at once, the exchange must deliver real liquidity immediately. If it cannot, the rumor becomes a self-fulfilling outcome. In that environment, communication must be precise and credible. Vague reassurance can backfire. It can read as delay. For a short moment, the market saw a potential rescue narrative, including discussion of an acquisition proposal. The idea of a larger competitor stepping in can stabilize confidence if the deal is real, funded, and fast. But when a proposal does not complete, the market's interpretation is harsh. If a buyer looked and walked away, the whole must be serious. That perception can be devastating because it removes the last psychological anchor holding panic back. By this stage, FTX had become an example of how quickly a modern financial platform can lose stability when three conditions collide: concentrated confidence, rapid information flow, and immediate withdrawal capability. Traditional banks can slow withdrawals through business hours, settlement systems, and layers of friction. Crypto exchanges operate continuously, and withdrawals can move quickly. That speed is appealing in good times, but it also accelerates crisis in bad times. The educational point is that a run is not primarily about technology, it is about trust. Once trust is damaged, liquidity is demanded instantly, and the platform must prove solvency in real time. A company can be solvent yet temporarily illiquid, but in a run, markets punish even temporary gaps, and if it is insolvent, the run becomes a rapid reveal. Within days, the situation moved past the point of ordinary crisis management. The question was no longer, can FTX stabilize, but who is in control now, and how will losses and obligations be handled? That question opened the door to bankruptcy proceedings, restructuring leadership, and a long legal aftermath. On November 11, 2022, FTX, Alameda Research, and many affiliated entities filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and Sam Bankman-Fried resigned as CEO. A restructuring specialist, John J. Ray III, took over, an important detail because bankruptcy at this scale demands not only legal work but also operational triage, mapping accounts, identifying assets, understanding liabilities, and separating what is recoverable from what may be lost. In bankruptcy, a company's public story is replaced by a court-supervised reality. Every claim is measured against records. Every promise is reinterpreted through documents. Bankruptcy proceedings are often slow because they must be fair. Different creditors, different jurisdictions, and different categories of customer accounts may require distinct handling. In an exchange collapse, this is emotionally difficult for customers because they experience the crisis as immediate. My funds are stuck, while the resolution system moves at the speed of legal process. As the bankruptcy moved forward, investigators and stakeholders focused on whether customer assets had been properly safeguarded. The boundary between customer assets and company assets is central to any exchange's legitimacy. If customers believe their deposits are held safely and separately, they feel protected. If that separation is unclear, everything becomes contested and fragile. FTX's collapse also created ripple effects across the crypto ecosystem. Lenders and counterparties faced uncertainty, and other firms that relied on FTX liquidity or credit lines had to reassess their own positions. In moments like this, the market discovers how interconnected it really is. The educational warning is that interconnected systems can transmit stress quickly. It is not only one platform that falls, it is the assumptions surrounding many platforms. As the new leadership worked through the wreckage, the wider public also learned a hard lesson about institutional signals. Sponsorships, celebrity endorsements, and brand visibility can make a platform feel checked, but those signals do not substitute for governance and audited clarity. Later, courts would dismiss most claims against certain celebrity endorsers, emphasizing that endorsement visibility is not the same as proven knowledge of internal wrongdoing. This matters for education because it reframes the lesson. Don't confuse marketing proximity with operational oversight. Bankruptcy also became the arena for evaluating what value could be recovered. Assets in crypto cases can be complex. Digital tokens, venture investments, cash accounts, and claims against third parties. The process often involves tracing, liquidation, settlement, and sometimes litigation. Even when recoveries are substantial, timing matters. Customers can experience years of uncertainty before distributions begin. From the outside, it may have looked like the story ended when FTX filed for bankruptcy. In reality, bankruptcy was the beginning of the story's most structured chapter, where allegations, records, and responsibility would be examined through formal proceedings. At the same time, a parallel track was moving forward: criminal prosecution. The documentary tone here remains calm for a reason. The real drama is not spectacle, but the slow replacement of belief with evidence. Bankruptcy is where evidence accumulates, and once evidence accumulates, accountability becomes a matter not of public debate, but of legal outcomes. The criminal case against Sam Bankman-Fried became one of the most closely watched financial trials of the decade because it combined modern market structure with a traditional legal question. Were people misled in ways that caused substantial harm? In 2023, a jury found Bankman-Fried guilty on 7 counts related to fraud and conspiracy. That verdict reshaped the public narrative from collapse to criminal accountability. In March 2024, a federal judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison. The sentencing did not exist in isolation. It reflected the court's evaluation of seriousness and the broader need for deterrence in financial markets. When trust-based systems fail because representations do not match reality, courts treat the breach as significant. The message is not only about one defendant, it is about the boundaries of acceptable behavior in markets that depend on faith and disclosure. For an educational documentary, the key point is to keep the trial's meaning clear without slipping into sensational language. A criminal conviction is society's formal statement that certain lines were crossed and proven. The case also reinforced that complexity is not a shield. Crypto markets can be technically complex, but the core principles of fraud law remain familiar. If someone knowingly misrepresents essential facts and others rely on those misrepresentations, the system responds with enforcement. Public summaries also highlight the scale of forfeiture orders associated with the case, emphasizing that the economic consequences were considered massive. While numbers can be dizzying, the educational takeaway is not the size alone, but what size signals. That the alleged misuse and misrepresentation were not small errors, but systemic. This chapter also changed how the broader crypto industry discussed governance. Before FTX, many voices argued that crypto could self-regulate through transparency and code. After FTX, the appetite for stronger oversight, clearer disclosures, and more traditional financial controls became much louder. The industry learned that without strong internal controls, even a popular and well-funded platform can fail rapidly. Meanwhile, the human dimension remained. Customers and creditors wanted their funds back, and the bankruptcy process continued in the background. The criminal case established accountability for the wrongdoing as prosecuted, but it did not instantly resolve financial recovery. The two tracks, criminal and bankruptcy, move on different timelines and with different goals. One answers, who is accountable? The other answers, what can be recovered and how will it be distributed fairly? This distinction is part of the educational value. Legal accountability can be clearer than financial restoration. Courts can decide guilt and impose sentences. Restoring value depends on tracing, liquidating, and distributing assets, which can be slow even in well-run cases. The FTX trial and sentencing became a milestone in modern finance because it showed that digital asset platforms are not outside the reach of traditional enforcement. The market may innovate rapidly, but accountability rules still apply. After the collapse and legal proceedings, the question for many customers became practical and urgent. When will recoveries begin? In late 2024, FTX's debtors announced that the court-approved Chapter 11 plan of reorganization would become effective on January 3, 2025, with that date also set as an initial distribution record date for certain classes of allowed claims. This was a major turning point because it moved the story from investigation and litigation toward structured repayment. Financial recovery in a bankruptcy of this scale is rarely simple. It involves identifying assets, negotiating settlements, selling holdings, and resolving competing claims. In crypto cases, added complexity comes from volatility. Asset values can change dramatically over time. That can shape how recoveries are calculated and how stakeholders feel about fairness. Some customers may focus on the number of tokens they held. The plan may focus on the value at a certain reference date. Those differences can become emotionally and legally contentious, which is why the bankruptcy process is meticulous. Public reporting noted expectations that customers would begin receiving repayments in early 2025 after the plan's effective date, reinforcing that distributions were moving from concept into execution. Even when repayment begins, the story does not end instantly. Distributions often occur in phases. Some claims are straightforward and can be paid earlier. Others require more documentation, dispute resolution, or asset liquidation. The larger educational value of this chapter is that it highlights how making people whole is a process, not a moment. In many financial collapses, the harm occurs quickly, but the repair is slow. That slowness can feel unfair, yet it reflects the need to treat stakeholders consistently, avoid favoritism, and comply with court orders. Bankruptcy courts are built to ensure a rational process when a rational process has become necessary. This phase also invites a sober reflection on what recovery means. Even if large sums are returned, the experience can still be painful. Funds were inaccessible, plans were disrupted, and trust was broken. In finance, trust is not only about money, it is about reliability. When a platform fails, users reevaluate every assumption they held about safety, custody, and oversight. FTX's reorganization path also underscores that the public story can shift again, from scandal to administration, from headlines to paperwork, from chaos to forms and distribution schedules. That shift is important because it reduces emotional volatility and replaces it with a predictable system. Predictability is one of the few comforts bankruptcy can offer. The process is slow, but it is structured. In a documentary narrative, this chapter should be told with patience. It shows that even after a collapse, institutions can work to recover value. It also shows that closure in finance is often partial and gradual, shaped by courts and the real recoverable assets that remain. The FTX story is often summarized as a crypto exchange collapsed. But the deeper lesson is about systems, how modern financial platforms must be designed so that trust is not dependent on personality or branding. When a platform is trusted because it feels impressive, rather than because it is demonstrably controlled, risk quietly accumulates. One educational lesson is about structural conflicts. When an exchange is closely linked to a trading firm, the system must handle conflicts of interest with extreme care. That means clear segregation of customer assets, transparent risk limits, independent oversight, and internal controls strong enough to resist pressure during fast moving markets. If those protections are weak, users may not see the danger until a run begins. Another lesson is about tokens as collateral narratives. A native token can support a brand ecosystem, but if market confidence in that token becomes intertwined with the platform's perceived solvency, volatility becomes existential. The FTX crisis was accelerated by fears related to Alameda's exposures and the market's reaction to information about holdings connected to FTT. The educational point is not tokens are always bad, but dependence on thinly traded, sentiment driven assets can amplify fragility. A third lesson is about speed. Crypto platforms operate continuously, with instant information spread and rapid withdrawal behavior. That environment can punish weak governance more quickly than traditional finance. A platform that looks stable on a calm day can fail on a stressed day if it cannot meet withdrawals or provide credible proof of resilience. This is why transparency and audits matter, and why risk management must be boring, repetitive, and uncompromising. A fourth lesson is about social proof. Sponsorships and famous endorsements can create a feeling of legitimacy, but legitimacy in finance comes from controls, custody clarity, and regulation, not visibility. Later legal outcomes around celebrity claims reinforced that public endorsement is not the same as verified knowledge of internal practices. The safer interpretation is endorsements are marketing signals, not safety certifications. A fifth lesson is about accountability. The conviction in 2023 and the 25-year sentence in 2024 demonstrated that crypto does not exist in a legal vacuum. Courts apply long-standing principles to new technology. Misrepresentation and misuse of trust trigger serious consequences. This matters for the future because it tells both founders and users that the system will respond, even if it responds later than people would like. Finally, the reorganization plan becoming effective on January 3, 2025, and the start of repayments teaches a quieter lesson. Restoration can happen, but it is never as fast as collapse. That gap between harm and repair is exactly why prevention matters more than rescue. Users should expect clear custody rules. Investors should demand governance evidence, not only growth stories. And platforms should treat internal controls as core product features, not as optional compliance. In the end, the FTX saga becomes an educational mirror. It reflects what happens when a trust-based financial system grows faster than its controls. The goal of telling the story now is not to sensationalize it, but to strengthen the viewer's ability to recognize fragile structures so that future innovation can be built on verifiable safety rather than borrowed confidence.